welcome to the Trans Tipping Point podcast. This is the podcast that talks about a lot of political issues, but especially the issues surrounding trans rights and trans liberation, especially in a time of turmoil and vicious attack of this community. I have done a lot of videos in the past, but it has been a while since I've put out a video, so I thought I'd do one now since it's Pride Month. But I'll be doing a lot more. I've got some really good plans, actually. A couple of fun ones. I'm going to be ranking pride flags. I'm probably going to do a whole ass video on gender to go over the basics for people that don't really follow these issues. And I'm probably going to do some more political ones. Today's episode is going to be somewhat short and approachable. It's basically a video about the primary elections. Today, here in Iowa, as well as I think 5 other states, we have a primary. A primary is where the parties choose which candidate they will put forward in the general election. And this one's kind of important, and I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody, who you should vote for or what matters to you. You should figure that out for yourself, frankly. I'm going to talk about a couple of races that I think are very important and give you my perspective on why I think one candidate makes more sense than the other. Before I get into the individual candidates, I just want to remind everybody today is the actual primary, and you have until 8 p.m. to cast your vote at the polling place. And we're going to look at exactly how to do that. But let's turn to the 2 races that I want to talk about. No, let's talk about how to vote first. I will get to this will be very succinct and quick, but let me just pull up how to vote. So in anywhere in the country, you can type in the following website, iwillvote.com. Okay? And then you go to, it automatically populates mine as Iowa. You would click on find your voting or drop off location as a former address of mine, and that will come up with where you live and your polling place. And so you would just go to that place, wherever you put your address, it would tell you where to go. Now, you might be wondering about registration and all that, and that's a great question. The thing with registration is that this is a primary, so the deadline to register is actually 10 days before November 3rd. So you can actually register to vote at the primary. It's a great opportunity to get engaged early and to make sure you're on the rolls for November. And if you're not sure which party to register for, you register as the party of for the party that you want to vote for that primary of. So in the case of Democrats, which we'll be talking about today, you're going to register as a Democrat, even if you're like an independent or something, which is fine for the general election. But for the Democratic primary, you have to be a Democrat and you'll register as such. It also allows you to update your address, which is important because although you can vote after having moved, you will have to prove your new address. And there's a few ways to do that. It's not that hard, but at some level, it's just better to have it all cleaned up and ready to go now rather than on election day in November. So I urge everybody who's listening to this to go out and vote today and in your primary by going to iwillvote.com, typing in your address, bring your ID, bring an updated address if you've moved or whatever, and get that all straightened out today. And in my case, we're going to be voting in the Democratic primary, and that's what I'm going to urge everybody who's listening to do. Now, let's turn to the races. So there's a whole bunch of races. Let's pull up a sample ballot. You can find these sample ballots in just one second here on the Polk County Auditor website. And we're just going to find a precinct that will show me what I want to demonstrate today. I want to talk about voting for Matt McCoy, which I think this one would count. Let's try this one. Yeah, okay. So this is what your ballot's going to look like. Now this is going to vary a little bit. The state representative and state senator are going to be a little different depending on where you live. But in general, these are important offices you should vote for. But the 2 that I want to talk about today are the United States Senate and the Board of Supervisors. Now let's start with the Senate. Now this is a contested Senate race, and basically it's between 2 candidates. Let me pull that up. Iowa Senate. And So this is the race. This is between. This is for the November 3rd election, and it's between. Well, the Republicans are nominating Ashley Hinson. She is a despicable, evil, disgusting person. She is a pro-Trump, corrupt, on the take fascist who does not believe in individual rights. She's a terrible human being and a terrible politician. And she will be running against one of these two individuals, Josh Turk and Zach Wahls. Josh Turk and Zach Wahls, in many ways, are not that different. They have similar views on most issues. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to urge you to vote for the Democrat, whoever it ends up being. But I think that going into the primary, it's important we put our best foot forward. And that's why I'm proud and, you know, I feel strongly about endorsing Zach Wahls for that race. Why Zach Wahls? Well, I mean, let's just briefly explore these candidates. So, looking at Josh Turk first, he's from Western Iowa. He lives in the Council Bluffs area. He also, I mean, the first thing a lot of people notice, he happens to be in a wheelchair. He is a decent human being. I don't have any personal problem with him necessarily, but the problem is he is endorsed by Chuck Schumer. And in fact, Chuck Schumer, the Senate, the minority leader of the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, has come into this race and dumped a lot of money on behalf of Josh Turk. So we have a big problem with that, and I'll explain that in a second. The other candidate, however, is Zach Wahls. Zach Wahls is from Eastern Iowa in District 43. He is the Senate majority leader or minority leader in the Iowa Senate, and he went viral a number of years ago by doing a viral video defending his two mothers who raised him when they were trying to take away marriage equality. So he is a stand-up guy, and the thing is, and like I said, what happened is Zach Wahls back in November said he would not support Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, by the way, in my opinion, is like the worst leader of the Democratic Party we've ever had in the United States Senate, or at least in the last 50 years or whatever. He has led our party to ruin. He is the sort of definitionally corporate, big city elitist consulting class, like poll tested, poll driven, doesn't stand for anything, takes all the corrupt corporate money in the world. And he has also said crazy things like for every one voter we lose in rural America, we're going to pick up two in the suburbs, which has not played out at all. We've lost ground since he's been the leader. Additionally, he's also said that his number one job in the United States Senate is to make sure young Democrats support Israel, which is insane, not only for the sake that Israel is not our country, it's a different whole ass country, but it's also insane given that what's happening there with the genocide and everything. Young people and the party as a whole really have rejected that position. And so it's just weird that the most unpopular leader in the history of our party is coming in with millions of dollars to try to buy this primary away from Zach Wahls and in favor of Josh Turk. Josh Turk will support Chuck Schumer as leader. Zach Wahls will not. And so the fact that they've spent that they've spent $9 million on this primary is a bad sign. It's like it's like corrupting politics. And here's what I worry about. In the general election, when the Republicans are attacking the Democrats, they're going to try to attack the national Democratic brand. They're going to say Chuck Schumer and his insider corrupt Democrat cronies in Washington are trying to change America and blah, blah, blah. And we need somebody who can kind of run against that and who can be more independent and who can say, I actually don't agree with everything Chuck Schumer's done. I'm running as an independent voice for Iowa. That is Zach Wahls. That is not Josh Turk. He's going to be linked at the hip to Chuck Schumer, and they're going to kill him for it. And it's going to be a real tight race either way, and I'll do my best to support whoever wins, but I just know that Zach Wahls is by far the better candidate. He has better endorsements. He has better ground, support in Eastern Iowa. He has done more to fight Ashley Hinson's corruption in the state Senate, and he has also he hasn't campaigned negatively against Josh Turk, unlike Josh Turk, who's campaigning really negatively and disgracefully against Zach Wahls. I urge you all to vote for Zach Wahls for U.S. Senate. He is the better candidate, and he is the stronger candidate to go up against the Republicans this fall. Okay, turning next to the Board of Supervisors race. This is an interesting one. So in Iowa, we have in Polk County, we have these supervisor districts, right? This is Polk County, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I don't really care too much about 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, you can vote for whoever you want there. Most of those folks are running unopposed if they're even up at all. I care about District 1, which basically is the south side, kind of on the western edge of and going out west, and then also part of downtown and Sherman Hill. So you can see, for example, here Sherman Hill, here's half of downtown. Grays Lake is all in that, and then the south side going down, I think that's 9th Street. And the airport is covered, and it goes all the way out west to Clive and West Des Moines and stuff. But it depends on exactly where you live, so you got to look that up. But if you have this ballot, you'll see that he's running against John Forbes. Now, this is a complicated history between these two candidates. They have both been in politics for a long time. Matt McCoy is an openly gay man who used to be in the Iowa State Senate and is now running for his second term as a county supervisor, whereas John Forbes was in the state House of Representatives and ran for Matt McCoy's supervisor seat and lost. So he's kind of got a personal thing with Matt McCoy, and he's running again. He's like doing a repeat. The thing is, his argument is that Matt McCoy has made some decisions in local government that are not as progressive as they could be, because he's worked with some Republicans on a few issues. Now, let me talk about this briefly, and I'm not going to go into all the votes that anybody's ever cast, okay? But county politics is an interesting thing. It's not straightforward like national politics. Usually, county board of supervisors folks are voting on, like, are we going to name something, whatever? Are we going to do a zoning issue? Are we going to give a tax credit? Are we going to extend a contract to this service to cut down trees over here, or whatever? You know, it's all this kind of local stuff. And Matt McCoy got to the county board of supervisors 4 years ago, and he got in there. There were 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and the 2 Democrats, Angela Connolly and Tom Hawkinsmith, were kind of this power block in the county. They're sort of this generational machine politics establishment, very, I don't want to say corrupt, but they were just kind of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back kind of politicians. They were very opposed to transparency. Matt McCoy gets in there partially on a platform of increasing transparency, and there's a lot of chaos when he arrives. He tries to work with them, but for a while, they block him. They really don't they view him as a threat to their power, frankly. So eventually Matt McCoy, on a few votes, sides with the Republicans, and works with them to get some local things done. And he does what, in politics we would call horse trading. So he votes for a Republican thing that's not that big of a deal in the long run. For example, he voted to authorize a zoning grant to a megachurch, which is a conservative priority, and it probably would have gone through anyway. But he allowed, whatever, streamline it a little bit, make it go a little faster, in exchange for some concessions from his Republican colleagues, like making more funds available for Pride, extending county employee contracts, etc. And it's the type of thing that at the end of the day wasn't, the times he worked with Republicans didn't really end up being that ideological. Most of the stuff he was doing was, like I said, county level. We're going to grant this thing over here. We're going to do this thing over there. It's mostly that kind of project. The other one that people kind of look at as a conservative vote was the Croteau contract. The Republicans wanted to continue the contract with Croteau for the county. Everybody hates Croteau. It's evil. I agree. Matt McCoy sided with the Republicans and voted for their preferred towing company rather than go with a different towing company. And again, his reasoning wasn't like, I like Croteau. His reasoning was, look, we got to pick a towing company anyway. And yeah, Croteau works 10 out of 10, evil, bad. The next best one that they were probably going to pick would have been like 9 out of 10, evil, So the argument that I think you would make from his perspective would be he was willing to do a slightly worse towing company in exchange for some other concessions on some other key priorities for his progressive views, such as LGBT rights, civil rights code, employee labor kind of stuff. And so that's kind of what happened there. Now, I personally disagree with him on that vote. I think that it was wrong to extend a towing contract to Croteau, especially when Croteau has been giving contributions to the 2 Republicans on the board. But these are the kind of, you know, trade-offs and difficult decisions that people have to make. And I know that if I were in that position, I would like to say I wouldn't vote for something I didn't believe in or agree with. But I could also understand that if they were offering something else that I really wanted to prioritize, I might have to compromise on a towing contract for a couple years just to get what I want now. These are difficult decisions, but at the end of the day, I would characterize Matt McCoy as anti-establishment, pragmatic, willing to work across the aisle, but not particularly ideological in the sense that he wasn't working with Republicans to enforce a Republican agenda at all. In fact, he was undermining certain aspects of the county establishment Democrats that one could look at as sort of a conservative, outdated mindset about how county politics should work. And this includes one of the things he campaigned on, which was increased transparency at the county level, which he has done. So by the end, at the end of the discussion, I would say he's a pretty decent candidate to think about voting for anyway, because I think that the idea of sort of like generational machine establishment politics is just not working regardless of party. And his rebellion against that wasn't ideological. Again, it was more of a power structure thing. So I think he's already well positioned to earn your vote. But then we look at his opponent, John Forbes, who's run a nasty, negative, aggressive campaign trying to argue that Matt McCoy is responsible for all these problems in the county, which were actually caused by Angela Connolly and Tom Hawkinsmith, his allies. You see, they didn't like it when Matt McCoy rebelled or went against their power structure. And so what he did was he had the audacity to do his own thing and to go kind of more in an independent direction. So they recruited John Forbes to run against him and take him out. That's how retribution machine politics works. It's not the system that I like. I hate that. And so it's bad enough that John Forbes is doing that. But then let me show you this. Hold on. Okay. So here is Nick Sarkone's Facebook post about this. This is let me just read it. Okay. A mailer went out at the end of last weekend, highly critical of Matt McCoy. It was nasty and negative and contained multiple false statements regarding McCoy. The mailer was put up by Citizens for Civic Impact. Sure sounds like an innocuous name, but it was actually came into being on May 6th when John Watson, a Republican attorney, filed to change the name of Citizens for School Betterment to Civic Impact. And if you look at the filings for the school group that he changed the name of to Civic Impact, it's chaired by Doug Gross, a huge Republican, and it's supported almost exclusively by far-right dark money. And so basically, Forbes is colluding with Republicans to smear Matt McCoy and get him elected. And they stuck him in at the last hour as part of this just kind of personal attack on Matt McCoy. So even if you're inclined to not like Matt McCoy's pragmatic compromises at that level, you got to be worried about this, the fact that his opponent is funded almost exclusively by huge Republican donors. Let's just look at these filings. This is the school organization here, going back to last year. Checks from these Republican organizations, $50,000, $50,000 from another Republican organization, $5,000 from another Republican organization. A huge corporate bank gave him $3. It looked, oh no, sorry, it's a bank charge. But you get the idea. So they were getting all this Republican money, and they were running on that in 2025. But then, and this is their filing by that same Republican attorney from 2025, but then they get to this one here. So that's the school betterment one, 2025, Republican money. Then you get over here, Articles of Incorporation, and then you get to the Articles of Amendment to the Articles of Incorporation. They changed their name from the school betterment one to the civic impact one here on May 6, 2026. So all that Republican money and all those Republican ties are now being used to shovel money into John Forbes' campaign. So that's just dirty. That's absolutely despicable. And it's all negative attack ads. It's just nothing, but it's nothing good about John Forbes. It's nothing like substantive on like, oh, we have to vote for a new, whatever it would be. I don't know what progressive policy agenda you could even come up with at the county level that would really distinguish John Forbes from Matt McCoy, but whatever. They're not even trying to pretend like they're being progressive. They're just using Republican dark money to go after him, Matt McCoy, personally. And that's what I have a huge problem with. I have a huge problem with somebody going after a Democrat on a personal level like that, but I have an even bigger problem using right-wing dark money from scum-sucking fascists who are trying to ruin our country to try to get some like pretend Democrat to replace Matt McCoy, who's a real Democrat. He's a real, he's a real progressive. Again, you can disagree with his strategy in terms of working with Republicans on a few issues. But what you can't do is you can't say John Forbes is some like pure progressive running to make the county more progressive, because he's not. He's running as a Republican token being funded and paid for by the Republican Party and all these Republican donors. In addition to that, and here's how you really know what's up, and I'll pull this up as well. The other thing is that Matt McCoy has been endorsed by pretty much all the major unions in Polk County. I'll pull this up here. Okay, so he's got all these union endorsements, and that's a huge deal for me, because union endorsements are basically an indication that you're for workers. And in a time when AI and automation are replacing workers and all the owners and the big corporations are trying to steal even more money, it's all the more important that we support unions. And Matt McCoy isn't just endorsed by unions, but he is actually using union printing in his campaign. John Forbes, if you look at his flyers and stuff, don't have a union label. They're not being made by a union print shop, which means he's using scab printing, okay? And that's unacceptable. As a Democrat, like every Democratic campaign I've ever done or been a part of or been near has used union printing. And the idea that somebody would be running on the ostensible platform of running to Matt McCoy's left, but not use union printing, insane. Unions are what made like it gave us the 5-day work week, it gave us, weekends, it gave us overtime pay, it gave us minimum wage. Those very important benefits that unions have earned over time are being thrown under the bus by John Forbes right now. So if you really want like a litmus or like a sort of a heuristic, simplification of how you know somebody's a decent guy, it's who the unions support. I'm not saying that's the end-all be-all, but for me, it's a huge deal. So Matt McCoy, pro-union, uses union print shop. John Forbes being funded by dark money Republicans, no union print shop, scab printing. Okay, not acceptable. So again, that's where we're at. Matt McCoy is by far the better candidate. He's a better supervisor than John Forbes could ever be. And John Forbes is a Republican plant to try to replace a solid Democrat on the county board of supervisors. So that's why I would enthusiastically urge you to vote for Matt McCoy. So again, just to conclude, I would respectfully ask everybody watching this video, go out today. You have until 8 p.m. Go to your county, your election location. Again, I will pull up the website that you need, iwillvote.com. Type in your address and go ahead and go down to the polls and get out there and vote for these two great candidates. As far as everybody else, you can vote for whoever you want, but I really would urge you to vote for Matt McCoy and Zach Wahls. Zach Wahls, it's Pride Month. I have to get this in. Zach Wahls, 2 lesbian moms. Matt McCoy, gay guy. Okay, Pride Month. Do your duty. Queers. Let's do this. Let's bring us over the finish line. Get out there and vote for the better candidates. Vote for Matt McCoy and Zach Wahls. And thank you so much for watching. Like I said, we're going to have a lot more content coming up on the Trans Tipping Point podcast as we go forward, and I look forward to joining you for those videos.